What is up, guys? Welcome back to the channel. So glad to have you back. Today I wanted to talk about my favorite era of metal music, and that was 2000s era metalcore. Listening to bands during this time, the big ones were As I Lay Dying, Bullet for My Valentine, Atreyu. These bands defined my growing up into young adulthood. During this time I was middle school, moving into high school, and I was a misunderstood teen. There's no way about it. I wore all black every day, skull hoodies, crossbones on everything, right? And I probably looked like the typical scene kid. Hair was down past my mouth, had the big long bangs, the big poofy hair. For me, though, it was a way to rebel, right? And I think it was for many, many other people. Reading through the comments and the reactions and interpretations of bands from that time period, and seeing how it changed people's growth and how much people related to those bands made me feel so good, because that's how I was growing up. But what is it? What is metalcore? Metalcore is a fusion genre. It combined elements of extreme metal, hard rock that were big at the time. Moving out of the 90s, Metallica was huge, obviously Megadeth. Combining those elements, but with hardcore punk and grunge, which at the time was ending, right? Kurt Cobain was the end of grunge. When Kurt Cobain died, that was it. The grunge era officially ended with him, and that, as sad and as awful as it was, it represented a new change into music. And this is where metalcore really became big, I think, was the end of grunge, moving into the 2000s. Obviously tons of other grunge bands at that time still kept going, of course, Alice in Chains, Bush, but I think we can all agree when Kurt passed, that was like the seismic shift. I was like, whoa, grunge was the top, but with him gone, it's like grunge was on its way out. And metalcore kind of stepped in with added speed, technical solos, breakdowns to really get your head banging, and that for me was just enthralling. It pulled me in. My first time listening to Bullet for My Valentine, Killswitch Engage, it's like, wow, this is intense, this is head banging material, and it's incredible. And for me, the lyrics were what really brought me in. They were typical topics of the time, were heartache, anger, not fitting in, but that, as a young teen, that's what you relate to, right? As a young metal kid, that's what you believe into your core. And so these bands made me feel like I wasn't alone, and that I had a whole grouping of thousands, tens of thousands, millions of people who love these bands that I could relate to, and that was super special. Production during this area was also tremendous. I mean, punchy drums, unfiltered guitars with gain up to 11. This is something I think is missing from this new age of kind of deathcore and technical metal that we're really getting into. Production's gotten a lot more digital over time. Anyone can agree with that, right? More programming, more punched in instruments, way more layers in the music. And that can lead the sound to being a bit too pristine, a bit too perfect. I still love the bands of today's era, I should say. Lorna Shore, Sleep Token, Polyphia are just some of the ones that come into mind. Huge bands with huge fan bases and amazing music, but the production is so clean, so crystal clear, so filtered through and digital, that I do miss that rawness, that power, that emotion from the early metalcore days, which I think has kind of faded out as music as a whole has gotten a lot more digital over time. But I'm sure this music still speaks to the younger generation, like metalcore did for me as a teenager. Lorna Shore just took off and has such a huge fan base, and that's just amazing to see. And I'm sure that if I was born, in the 80s and grew up as a grunge era kid, I would be the biggest Nirvana, biggest Foo Fighters, biggest Alice in Chains fan in the world, right? Because that was the era, that was that grunge era. And for me, that grunge era was metalcore era. And it's so cool to just see these different time periods in music and the bands that define them. And not only defined that generation, but defined all the people in that generation. And that's really, really cool. And overall, I'm just so happy to see metal continue to evolve, right? You know, we've heard plenty of narratives throughout the years that, oh, guitar's on its way out, metal's on its way out, pop is the future, rap is the future, and it's like those genres, of course, have gotten way, way bigger over time. But metal is as big and strong as ever. And I'm sure today's kids, teens, who are, you know, growing up and feeling like they don't fit in with the pop crowd are just as happy growing up with Lorna Shore and Polyphia and all these other huge metal bands which are currently popular at this time. But yeah, I'd like to know what your favorite era of music is. For me, it really is that 2000s metalcore. Every time I listen to it, it just brings me straight back to when I was finding my musical identity. And it's so sick. It's aged like fine wine. The production is so raw. The lyrics are, you know, tugging at your heartstrings, but also inspiring you. It's such an awesome era. And I'd like to know what your era is the top pick for you and what defined your growth period as a young adult. I'd love hearing people's metal stories, their favorite bands, what made them who they are today as a person, as a musician. So please share your experiences in the comments below. And with that, I will see you guys in the next one. Peace.